The report. All right, we already called the meeting to order, those listening on the recording. And we'll start with staff updates.
All right, I don't have that many things to update on. We did meet just 3 weeks ago, so a lot of it is just continuing to move things forward. Next month, I will be going to council to propose some changes, or I think it's a joint meeting to be let in. Thank you. Hey, Mike is gonna come let you in. Oh. I think she's at the oh, never mind. There she is. Okay. CSRAP, the Supplemental Rental Assistance Program that CRHA administers. We're going to be doing a program evaluation of that in the first half of next calendar year. And we have made some slight changes for the program, this coming program year. That will be in the newest amendment. We have to amend the agreement every year to continue it for another year. So that's what we'll be going forward, is the 8th amendment. That's the CSRAP agreement.
Is the percentage above FMR changing? I remember it was like 100, that the CSRAP amount was 120% of FMR. I think it went down.
I don't think that it has changed in all for CSRAP. That's not one of the items we have marked for change. And but I know John would know off the top of his head what it is or what it has been and the entire history of it. But I don't know. Okay. Our CAF grant program is open right now. I had a workshop with applicants last week. We usually don't get as many applications for these projects as we do for the HOPS grant program because there's not as many large construction projects and rehabilitation projects that go on versus all of the different organizations that need financial support for running their housing programs. Yes, thank you. And that is the gist of it. We have a lot of development projects that are underway for affordable housing. So that's also been keeping me busy because people are spending money. So now they're needing a lot of reimbursements from the city, but that's great. We want to see the projects going underway. So for Kindlewood Phase 2, I've been receiving for 6th Street Phase 1 and South First Street Phase 2. These are all underway. Those two are CRHA projects.
Okay.
All redevelopment. So there's a lot of construction going on in addition to the large student, the Verb, and then another one on JPA.
How many total units do you know, maybe?
Not off the top of my head, but I will show you one pretty cool thing that I don't know that a lot of people seem to know about. So our Neighborhood Development Services website, we go over to development review and look at the development map.
Oh.
This will show anything.
That is under what? Neighborhood development. Neighborhood development.
Oops, yes, Neighborhood Development Services and then planning, or no, development review, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
And then the development map. And so then you can see what's going on all over the city.
That's really cool.
So approved, under construction, under review. So under construction, that's a total of 1,098 units under construction.
So big compared to all years past.
Yeah, so that's a lot
Like,
right now. And then if you just click that, so it will show you all those different groups.
Do you know how much of that would be affordable?
Mostly just these. So Friendship Court Phase 2 and the South First Street Phase 2 and 6th Street Phase 1. So I'm always trying to keep the phases straight in my head. There is also right outside of the city limits, so it's not on here, but it is a project the city's supporting, is Vista 29, I think is the name now. So that's permanent supportive housing that is through Support Works. This was an organization and project that changed names. That's why I'm sitting here trying to make sure I'm saying the right names. But
And they currently operate the crossings, so
Yes.
it's the
Oh,
same organization.
yes, yep.
It used to be called.
Virginia Supportive Housing.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was Premier Circle, and now, Vista 29, but that one is, that
That was
was,
a hotel.
yes,
Okay.
yep,
Or
yeah.
what
And you can, if you drive by it now, you can actually see, it's
Yeah.
exciting, you can see it.
Oh,
coming
I
up
drove
above.
by today and I was like, what's that?
Yeah, I know for the longest time I was always looking.
I hadn't seen what the
looking,
sheeting up and
then
how,
finally,
and
yeah.
I thought, anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I notice it when I'm driving around town right now that
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. So it's certainly keeping us busy, and I'll leave that for the staff updates. If anyone has any questions, please, yeah.
Did city council approve that John Sales or his representative could start?
This is not,
Kathleen is on her way.
okay,
She
yeah.
dropped me off.
But you
at
said
front.
last meeting that city council needed to.
They do, and it's not, that is not going before city council right now. It's not on the calendar to go before city council. Right now Kathleen still attends the meetings and she's able to, she cannot vote. So that would be the only difference. But to be honest, it's not like we can just simply, it's not really a simple process to bring anything before city council. So given the number of things we do have in the next 6 months that we're gonna need to go before council, I'm not sure how big of a priority that one is. But if it's something that this group really recommends should be a priority, that, we can talk about that as we move forward. It's just one thing on a list of many.
Doesn't seem like it would require a lot of discussion if it were on the agenda, does it? Like,
No, well, and
No, it just has to, I still have to do a lot of prep work to get it on the agenda, and everything requires at least 1 month of advance for that too, and preparing a staff report. It's not like it's an entirely huge amount of work, it's just there's just me, and there's a lot of other things that I think are more impactful that also need to have those things developed.
yeah, I'm just missing that voice. I think it's really important.
But I guess my point is Kathleen has been attending and she is speaking, so I'm not sure, like, this is not preventing Kathleen from attending meetings in any way.
Who else is out there?
Good afternoon, Ms. Mallon. The Home to Hope, I'm not the contact for Home to Hope. Yeah, I know, I'm not even in that building though, and the Home to Hope is located, I think, below where you're probably standing, so you may wanna try just going the door downstairs, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm in the middle of a meeting right now, so I'm gonna have to go. No problem. Okay, that's when your number is posted on a door that says we need assistance for the hack meeting. So
The only drawing that I still need to continue to be is the affordability of some of those housing, and it seemed like it's only a few agency or 3 agency who is focusing on deeply affordable. And that's Habitat, Piedmont Housing Alliance, and CRJ. And I do think that there has to be some mind shift around that. Affordability, when you say affordability, deeply affordable sends a different message to me and my residents and my clients than just affordable. Cause most of the time affordability, now even with a Section 8 voucher, you can't get in. And just being in the room with how these development deals go, if you don't have other monies that's going into it, people say it doesn't work. And it doesn't seem like we have anybody who wants to make it work other than the 3 agencies. And I think that is something that we have to, it has to be a mind shift. Because with all of it, like right now, anybody with a Section 8 voucher, not a project-based voucher, but I'm looking for them to master that too. But if anybody with a HCV voucher, if they lose that, they're just gonna be homeless. They're just gonna be homeless because they're not putting any more money into the Section 8 voucher and they're not reissuing them to other people on the waiting list. And so, that's always on my frame of mind is about, if you think you see homelessness now, just wait. What's gonna happen? And then the other thing is that, and even my son is, who works all the time and whatever, it seems like every year, some places that you may be able to find rent is going up. Every year they're just increasing the rent. And I don't think that we are focusing on, I don't know what we can do about it, but I just feel like there needs to be some push. And this is why I'm personally pushing back at LV Collective, because I know even those units,
Right, they're only required to be, if they're affordable, 60% AMI.
and most of our folks don't make that kind of money. And so when are we gonna really talk about that and address that?
They actually can't do on-site affordable housing, right?
Right.
Well, they call it affordable housing, but maybe they shouldn't be calling it affordable housing, because it's not affordable housing.
They're not allowed to do on-site.
Well, I mean, they can do whatever they want, but they would still have to pay, they have to pay a fee for it. I mean, if they wanna make units affordable, no one's going to stop them from doing
Oh,
that,
right.
but they're not going to likely
Right.
do that, but
Right.
yeah, I don't believe they're planning on building any affordable units because they're not, they're required to
But
pay a
the
fee.
Durham
They just
Market
pay
said they
money.
were gonna do it. They promised the neighborhood that they were gonna do it. And then when people showed up with their vouchers, excited about, oh, this is a new unit or whatever, they didn't qualify.
So wrong.
And so that's a concern for me. It's a concern for Ford. It's a concern for the neighborhood. Even the thing on the corner, the university thing. Vouchers, people are not gonna get in there with vouchers.
What's the one on the corner?
You mean the 10th and Worthwood?
Tens of worth.
Oh,
Roy, can you give me a little bit more insight about why people didn't qualify when they showed up with vouchers? What were they told?
I guess it's the price for the unit, the market rate for the unit and how much the voucher is.
Should give it a gas.
yeah. Too
It's a big, yeah.
Can we offset that, the city?
I would love for the
Okay.
tax abatement program to do that.
Ooh, not a bad idea.
That's like mentioning.
So you could take the
That.
MU fees and apply them in the neighborhood where the project is, and
Yes, that's.
I like that.
Right, so the voucher is supposed to, remind me how the formula works. The voucher is supposed to cover, our voucher is supposed to cover like 110% of fair market value or something. What, are you saying that the units are priced so far above fair
But
market
that's not
value?
enough, yeah.
going back to Nicole's question, I have the FMRs that came out in August. Do you want me to?
Yeah,
Yeah. So this is Charlottesville, area. 1 bedroom, $1,600, 2 bedroom, $1,800, 3 bedroom, $2,200.
Way more than that.
it is. So I'm just saying, it's something that, I mean, I'm always, I'm like,
I mean, can I suggest it's a good segue into one of the topics, which
okay.
is the sort of planning of the hack for the next year? Like, what are the topics we're gonna cover? What are the things we're gonna push for and talk about?
Yeah, but I would just wanted her to know that even though I see those numbers,
Yeah.
I'm not excited.
Yeah, no, they're not deeply affordable.
I'm not jumping
That
up and
is
down for
certainly
joy.
true. I think, to Mike's point, though,
Because
we
even,
have-
even with our residents at South First Street and Crescent Halls, they're, when they came, some of them were public housing resident. And when they came back, they weren't public housing resident, they voucher holder. And that, their payment process was a lot different from the public housing and higher. So even with that, within the housing authority, we are having issues of, units being a little bit higher than what they came out of and what they're returning to. So. That's just my.
Yeah, no, it's on my mind too, and I noticed that last year when we evaluated all of the CAF grant applications, that just the number of units proposed at 30% or below was almost non-existent. So we have the directive that we should be prioritizing our funding to support those, but if you get 5 projects submitted and only 1 project has any units that are gonna be less than 30% AMI, should
Maybe
we?
it's the Dillon rule, I don't know much about that Dillon thing, but.
Well, if I can, I'll
Okay,
share,
go ahead.
I'll share, a conversation I've been having with Sam Sanders off and on for the last 2 years, but more recently in the last 6 months or so. So I'll use an example of 501 Cherry, the development that we're doing along Cherry Avenue. The pro forma and the depth of affordability profile has 30% units, 50 and 60% units in it. The number of 30% units is about 10% of the property because that's what the typical LIHTC capital stack can support before, it doesn't become viable anymore. But last year in the CAF cycle, we applied for, as a sort of a test case, a pilot, for 3 units for the city to buy down some of the 60% units to turn them into 30s. And the challenge is that by the time we come to the table with that request, all other sources of funding have already been leveraged. So it's just on the request was just for the city to pay for the difference between going from a 60 to a 30. And what they're doing is essentially paying down debt. So we don't have to carry debt payments on those units because 30% units don't have any capacity for paying any debt. They can just help pay for operations, but there's no debt capacity. So we asked for $125,000 per unit in terms of buying it down from a 60 to a 30 to enable that to be the case. And I put it out there just because it's a reality that we have to contend with, which is, I mean, we've talked about this many times, like the more deeply affordable, the more expensive it is, the more subsidy you have to put in there.
Was it denied?
We got 2 of the 3. So we asked for 3 units at $375 and we got 2 at $250. We're submitting a similar request this CAF cycle, not on 501, but on a different project on our MACA development. But in my conversations with Sam, he wanted to know what would it cost for each of the projects we have in our pipeline right now. How much would it cost to go from a 60 to a 50 or a 50 to a 40 or a 60 to a 30? So we have a spectrum and a spread. And it depends, it's not a uniform number, because it depends a little bit, it's a 1-bedroom, it's a 3-bedroom, what's the capital stack? So in some properties, it's more or less expensive, depending on all that. But we did a spreadsheet and we handed it off to Sam. And so it ranges anything from like 60,000 to 130,000 probably. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but in that ballpark per unit. And it's because we have already leveraged LIHTC, we've already leveraged Federal Home Loan Bank, we've already leveraged all the other sources that normally when the city contributes, we're using that to build other capital stacks on top of it. So I'm just putting it out there as like, we're having those conversations, we put it in front of the CAF. Sam asked me to do it that way so that it would spur a conversation with city council around this question of, the city wants to prioritize deeply affordable, but the projects are not necessarily coming that way. So this is one tool to enable that. But it does have cost that we have to contend
It's
with.
expensive. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
lot per
That is
per
expensive.
unit.
It is.
Is that one time or for?
That's one time. Yep.
And I know that information, I believe that's part of what Sam is planning to talk with council about in his affordable housing work session next month as well.
Yeah, that's a
November
good question, I believe. That should be something that's all on our collective
Yeah.
calendars.
Okay.
Oh, it's not gonna be on here yet. Okay.
Is it the city council that tells us what they want us to work on? Or do we come up with things ourselves?
By right,
Oh, okay.
either way. Do you want to, Madeline, do you want to review this? Or do you want to, I guess we haven't done minutes yet. Yeah, sorry, we haven't done that yet. And Joy,
I did not print them the minutes out, I'm sorry, I forgot to print them out, I can pull them up here.
and Joy asked me to continue running the meeting for the moment, so I'll just keep in that vein. And actually, Madeline, we didn't really close off. Were there any other staff updates you wanted to do?
No,
Okay.
no, just
All right.
try to keep going.
Gotcha, thank you. So yeah, the meeting minutes,
Really brief added question.
Yep.
Any update on like timeline with getting the consultant to find more staff to
Yes,
go out in the housing department?
there is, yeah, we were reviewing the proposals that we received. We received proposals from, I think, 4 different consultants. And Kelly is taking the lead on that, so I'm not sure what the timeline is exactly, but I know, oh yeah, you reviewed them.
yeah, so Kelly sent it out to a subgroup of folks, to external reviewers. I was one of those, 3 consultants at least at this point.
One got, yeah, she only sent 3 along. There was
Gotcha.
one that we had already agreed was,
Not.
well, their pricing was, I think, 3 times the amount of everyone else. So I said, okay.
Kelly asked for comments from the reviewers by the end of this week, I think it was. And then the goal, there is a pretty clear timeline that in the RFP, which has the ideas that they would have their work done within, I don't know, it's like 8 weeks or 8
Yeah,
to,
6.
it's a short period. So my interpretation is that like by mid first quarter, like maybe February-ish, maybe to March-ish, depending on when they would come on board, with that work to be complete.
Yeah, and there is, in our, the budget cycle going on now too, we are trying to increase the staff by an additional person. And so if we get that in the budget, then we could potentially have.
So when are
3
you
people.
looking to have them in place?
There is not a time frame for them to be in place, because at this point, they're just trying to get the timeline for when they would hire, which sounds like, yeah, in first quarter next year.
February.
Yeah, there's not really a date for hiring at this point.
So the scope is how many more people to hire and what
I
they
think
should
it's
do and what their
less
skill
just
set is.
about how many people, but also like what, we have all of these different things on the table for us to be working on. And so some of it is also just trying to understand what are other housing departments for similar sized cities doing too? Like what does a normal housing department look like? What does the staffing capacity of a typical housing department look like? And what activities are they doing? We spend a lot of time on grant administration in our department for housing, and that takes up quite a bit of activity, and for our funding agreements that we have for various projects. That's kind of our primary housing activity that we do, but then there's also, we have the CSTRAP program that, maybe that should be expanded. Maybe there should be a city voucher, a larger city voucher program, or should the city be exploring more project-based vouchers for other projects, which is something that is also on the table, not to mention the land bank, all the other things that we have been talking about. So I think,
Does this interact at all?
I have
with
the scope out here. Can we
There
just
you go,
read it
yeah.
quickly?
Yeah, thanks.
Review organizational charts, job descriptions and staffing budgets, analyze workload distribution and service volume, conduct confidential interviews with housing program staff and leadership, gather feedback from external stakeholders, benchmark staffing models against peer cities, assess training, onboarding and professional development practices, identify gaps, inefficiencies and opportunities for restructuring or expansion, deliver actionable recommendations for staffing improvements. And then the duration of the project would be 10 weeks from contract execution.
Does this interact at all with the new city manager's office, the
as
organization and OCS?
No, not necessarily. I mean, as far as like in some of those interviews, I'm sure there may be some folks in the city manager's office that would be included, but it isn't, it's really has just stemmed from the fact that this department got moved, or division moved from one department into another department. And neither Kelly nor I have a whole ton of background about how we got here or what we're doing. We're both have been trying to catch up on things, so less related to the city manager's office.
Now we kind of follow up on something
Yeah.
you just said. So you said you spent a lot of time on grants administration. How much of that is reviewing quarterly reports?
Reviewing the quarterly reports is not too time consuming at this point. And I find too that with the grants administration, it's kind of cyclical. So like from like half the year, there's not kind of that much to do with the grants. But then between the time that we are trying to get all the new grants out there and then opening up the application period and then scoring all those grants, like that 6-month period gets pretty busy. And then then there's like another 6 months where things are kind of just going. So it's a little cyclical with the grant work.
Gotcha. Well, so maybe put this in the parking lot for our conversation around work plan, but I mean, I know from a grantee's perspective, those quarterly reports, I'm glad to hear they don't take up much time. Nothing changes every quarter. So I mean, I'm just wondering, I'm not wanting to address that specifically, but I'm wondering if we could be of help as the hack to review some of the administrative burdens that are on staff and what actually come with what actually produce public benefit and
Yeah.
what don't, and make some efficiency recommendations, because like reporting is important, it's critical. Quarterly reporting is useless because nothing changes on housing.
Right, for your like the projects.
But
I
if
know
you-
the HOPS ones we want quarterly because we make quarterly payments, so
Right.
that's more of a just,
But it'd be
compliance.
really interesting
Yeah.
to put everything on the table and say, what's the origin? Let's figure out whether, is this statutory? Is this something council passed? Would this require a council resolution? And if we can help you not to have to do stuff that doesn't move the needle.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think that's I mean, the way I interpret it, that's in the scope of the consultant that's coming on board.
okay,
And I didn't read that part of the scope, but one of the deliverables is when they have a draft report is coming to the hack.
Yes.
So there'd be an opportunity for sort of poking at that and seeing what their assessment is.
okay.
And I'll note too, we'll be working with an attorney that is not in the city attorney's office, but is more of a consultant that specializes in agreements for housing, like affordable housing development, because that's another thing. There's 3 more housing funding agreements that need to be developed in the next 6 months, and the staff person who used to do that no longer is a housing staff member and can't spend their time doing that. So that's something new Kelly and I will have to be managing, but our city attorney said too, some of these agreements are pretty outside of my wheelhouse, especially some of the more complex ones that are involving funding sources from the state as well, and there's other requirements, so that also could result in some changes to some of those requirements that are in there too. So I think a lot of the agreements that we have for some of our grants are they've been copied, just keep using the same one, whether or not it really works.
Whatever we can do to help.
I was just gonna say, for
Something we're gonna touch
myself,
upon.
I'm kind of interested in when it does come back, maybe circling back to the land bank if it's not dead forever, I don't know.
It's not dead forever. There's-
Michael, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I definitely noticed you did not say land bank. You said CETA a few times last Monday about purchasing properties. It just makes me think about what staff we have that has the skill set and expertise and where they live. Does the hack have anything to say about it? TBD. When it
Yes.
comes back to
more TB.
so much.
We want to build on that, then look at
If we can approve the minutes.
oh, right, all right. Yes, keep us on track.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved.
Great, okay, I'll have at it.
I'll be candid, I have not had a chance to review this prior to the meeting. Would you mind walking us through? I'm hoping I'm not going.
No, you're not.
I reviewed it, but I couldn't understand what was, I couldn't understand.
All right, so do you mind walking us through, Madeline?
No. So. Yeah, so we can start, I got it up here too. So, well, the first one was determining the priorities, so that's kind of self-explanatory. I think it was developing this calendar was the piece of that. Then determine next steps as it relates to the land bank ordinance. I think that was,
So this is what we have done.
this was something that was put together to guide what would have been done for fiscal year.
So we need to go and check off what we've done.
Right,
what's there.
what was done, what wasn't, I know that was the request, was to go over what had been put together and what actually, like, what is the status of these items? This number 3, so this is one that is really more hack guided, develop and deploy orientation and recruitment strategy to fill 2 vacant seats. We did fill one of those seats, but not really because of a recruitment strategy, just because somebody applied.
Well, to be fair though, even though I think it sourced out of the hack, I think our concept was that it would apply not just to the hack, but other committees and boards for the city as well.
That's true, yes. That was how, when we had that as a topic of the meeting, that is where that conversation
And
went.
again, once again, that's an area I'm very interested in, would be able to help with. Not be in charge of, but with other city departments help with.
Michael, with Eden's departure, Eden Ratliff, the deputy city
Right.
manager, he was supposed to do a review of all boards and recommendations of some kind, I guess. Where does that stand?
The new city attorney had given us a couple weeks ago at this point a memo about his legal interpretation of what's possible in terms of payments for boards and commissions. And what we've been told is that it's part of a process of continuing that work Eden had done, but we have not been given a timeline at this point, so there's no update on timeline.
And no additional, correct me if I'm wrong, no additional actions were taken other than the identification of this topic. No other steps, either the city or the hack have been taken since then, right?
Not in the city, and I know at some point there was, I believe like 3 members of the hack were going to try to schedule a meeting, but it was with Eden, who is no longer with the city,
Gotcha.
so that,
That got stymied.
yes.
Okay.
But that's good to hear that the city.
Does the hack committee have a orientation? I never went through an orientation.
There is not an orientation that has been developed. I think, yeah, if there is anyone who would like to try to come up with what an orientation should look like for a hack member,
I
that
think
would
it'd
be
it would be
really
nice.
excellent.
At least the acronyms.
I know we've both been working on our glossary.
Okay.
And then this pilot discussion to formulate a hack memo or recommendations for UVA to come to some sort of an agreement to make a payment in lieu of taxes to the city.
And we didn't have any further conversations about the pilot at all, right?
No.
Yeah, it's just sort of we identified it as a.
Yeah, so that's one that wasn't done.
Yeah, okay.
ADU program ordinance language cleanup. So we did go through the ADU development manual and we all agreed on changes that should be made to it. Those changes have not gone before city council to be adopted. Now we're working on another round of changes to that manual, essentially to look at the fee structure. So whenever I've still saved all of those, I still have those changes. And when we do go to city council next year for presumably some kind of an update to the fee structure or whatever results from the study we do, those will all go together to be updated.
So I do notice it's kind of confusing when you're on the website what the latest ADU manual is. And also like,
There's a broken link, I know. for
Yeah.
it, yeah.
yeah. And, just to have like a red line to show the changes.
For when the changes get made.
Yeah. Cause I think you made some like just HUD updates.
Yeah, I once a year, we are required to just update the tables that are
Yeah.
based off of HUD,
Yeah.
so that is what was changed.
Just
recently.
noting that, cause, I got it was a clean in October 3rd.
Yeah.
What was updated?
Yes, I'm aware. I got multiple emails about it with questions about what was changed, so I noted for the future. But yes, that is pretty much the only thing that can be changed without going to city council. So if it hasn't gone before council and there's been a change, that's the only thing that can change. Which is also why we haven't made any of those other changes that we had identified back in last fall. You know, it was somewhere in this timeframe of October through December we did that.
Can I ask you a question about?
Yeah.
that? So there's two different things. There's the ADU program and the ordinance language cleanup, which are two related but separate things. I know that the ordinance is going through a process that Matt
Right.
Affley is
Right.
leading. And I understand from Kelly that it's a sort of 3-tier process. That expressed a little frustration that HAC hasn't been part of this. There's an ordinance change going in front of council that impacts affordable housing, and the HAC has not been part of it. Now, I have to want to admit I've participated in this, and staff has been great. Like when I've said, have some comments, I've had a meeting with Matt Affley, so the staff has been excellent about it. But formally, this is something. The ordinance itself is something that really needs to go through HAC. The reality is that the ordinance is not helping affordable housing. It's just not. You can't do it. The zoning ordinance itself allows you to do it, but then you tack on engineering requirements and all the other things. And I've vetted 15 projects now, and that's, I think, way more important than a lot of the other work we have on this. This is what the HAC was created for, to bring practitioners to the table, real estate professionals, developers, builders who work in the affordable housing space to look at city policy and say whether this works for affordable housing and suggest changes. And so I don't know if we're still just kind of going through this or if we're now on the recommendation stage, but can we please have this prioritized as a HAC? It may not be in time for this first round of updates,
Right,
which I know are
pretty.
they're well underway. That's okay,
Yeah.
and I don't want to stand in the way of those going in front of council because it sounds like both on the tier 1, which is typos, and tier 2, which is some of the technical requirements. Everything I've seen so far is good, but it's not sufficient.
Mhm.
And so I really want HAC to be able to focus way more than the land bank, way more than a lot of the stuff that we're spinning our wheels on the single most fundamentally important change that the city has made over the last 30 years in terms of trying to create the conditions by which you can do affordable housing. It's not working. It could, but it needs technical tweaks. And we were put together as an organization to do this work. And
Okay.
So this is a lot of words to say this is a strong plea for this.
I will get together with Matt and see what can we do for those next 2 rounds of changes that will be more than typo corrections and things, how we can make sure that there's more.
Right.
Yeah, we
Involved
talked
in
about
that.
like doing a planning commission work session together with HAC.
I think this is like 6 months of making that number up, but this is a time period of intense work by us. I think Nicole was exactly right, with the planning commission, looking this and really getting down to brass tacks, because what's happening now is what has historically happened in the city, not because it's anyone's fault, but it's application related. So someone brings an application or idea forward, and it's one applicant, it's planners, it's engineers. And again, I want to be really clear, the city has been extremely responsive to individual applicants, but we need to be looking holistically at this. And I know Matt's doing that,
Mhm.
but the HAC is the unique body to look at this from the lens of affordability. And so honestly, if I was just going to say one thing today, it's can we prioritize this and make this our work product for some period of time? A lot of the other stuff is insignificant relative to what we could do in refining the zoning ordinance and the other related policies, such as standards and design, such as who makes decisions about fire access, who makes decisions about the width of utility easements, et cetera. All of that stuff has to be looked at together, not just zoning, not just engineering. It has to be looked at holistically from the perspective of practitioners who are trying to do what the city wants us to do. And it's not working. It could work. But I think we can add a lot of value to the conversation.
Yes, you're heard, and I will definitely get together with Matt, because he's leading that whole project, so we'll need to find a way to incorporate hack into his plan, because I think that probably was an oversight in the work plan when they were putting that together, is especially because, like you said, have their minds set on some really specific things, and it's not necessarily affordable housing. So that's your role, and noted and heard. We'll find a way to make that happen.
So maybe that's something that we can move under, since we're looking at the work plan and updating it, we can move that up to a high priority.
I'll just second that.
Yeah, I agree. It's high priority. I think as far as the timing goes, that's where the coordination has to happen with the team that's leading all those changes, because I can't dictate what timeline. I don't know what his plan is for the tier 2 amendments.
Well, we need to know that.
Exactly, that's tier 1, right?
So I think tier 1 and tier 2 are moving forward
Together, okay, so then the tier 3 ones are more.
Just so that people bring everyone into the conversation, tier 1, they're looking, the city's doing comprehensive. So Kelly inherited this zoning ordinance and was given the direction, fix it, make it better. It's a lot to put on somebody. She's come up with a process by which there's a 3-tiered approach. The first tier is to look through the ordinance, and there are some things that are just typos, misstatements. And it's mostly staff, I think, going through that. That's great. Tier 2 is there's a clear intent in each section of the ordinance, and then there are some requirements, such as certain ways that height is defined, for example, that's in the way of, that's sort of getting in the way of that intent being fulfilled. And then there's a tier 3, which they have, and those two things are moving forward to council, I think, by the end of this year. Then there's a tier 3 where there are some things like, I think, like the thing on West Main, where it's, do we want to revisit some of the things that we decided as a city or the council voted on?
We need to revisit that.
Right, but I think just to categorize it, I think that's sort of being considered tier 3, the
Yeah.
things that would require.
And
fairly
it
significant-
probably shouldn't even be in tier 3, probably should be part of,
Tier 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
tier 3 is just like what we're fussing about,
Yeah.
right?
And I wanna make,
Only chance you have. It's
Oh.
not ongoing. I just think that we just need to really look at that. For me, and for, we didn't realize the implication of what it would do if things are being built on the edge of community and how it impact that. And so we just need to own it and go back and fix it.
right, and agree, whether it's tier 2 or tier 3, I'm not sure I can.
I think 2 and 3, I mean, because that's a long
Kind of not
discussion.
even. Kind of a separate.
It's a,
Well, it's come up as an issue after they had started identifying some of these things over a year ago. And obviously, as the year has progressed, there have been a lot of things that have come to other people's
If I
attention.
can bracket that for a second, so I want to make sure that when the work comes back to hack, it's not just to review tier 3,
That's not,
it's actually to
That's what
review
I'm
tier 1
concerned
and tier
about.
2. Because again, I've seen what's moving forward, and I think a lot of it's great, but it's not comprehensive.
Yeah.
And it hasn't necessarily gotten sort of a fulsome review by the affordable housing providers and others who maybe don't necessarily historically do affordable housing, but would like to. There are a lot of technical details that aren't going to get passed in tier 1 or tier 2 now, that really are tier 2 issues. And so I want to make sure when this comes back to hack, it's not just us looking at tier 3.
that's my,
That we're
my
looking,
concern.
we're looking at tier 2 with the idea that, look, we're not gonna make this ordinance perfect overnight. Incremental improvements are fine, but let's not settle for what goes forward to council this time.
And for me, it would be that we admit that, okay, we missed this, we overlooked this. And here's how we can work to correct it, even if we don't correct it 100%, but we move to correct some of it.
Yeah, so the one thing I would push back a little bit on that, I think we should, I absolutely think that should be part of the conversation. Again, the way it's categorized, tier 3, I think, it's not clear the intent of what zoning code. I think you could look at it and say the intent was to put tall stuff up on West Main, but we may not have gotten that right. Like, we may not have expressed the intent and consistent with what the community wants us to do, which is, I think, what NDS is saying. That's a kind of tier 3 thing, whereas tier 2 is like the intent of RA is to get up to 6 units, but because of a couple of technical requirements, there's not a lot in the city where you can actually get 6 units on it. Whether it's because you have to have 20 feet of fire clearance or you have to, whatever, there's technical requirements. And so, Joy, I probably would end up supporting what you're suggesting, but I think this is something that probably has to go back to the people, right? And I'm pretty sure that the motion of that
The
ocean,
community people?
the motion of that ocean, I think is gonna.
Yeah, because,
I think public.
even the 7.5 street project, I think it just break my heart. But the fact that I grew up with people that live in that neighborhood and then also see the change, but it just breaks my heart when, cause I don't pay attention to every single thing that's happening in the city. I'm just so focused on some things and gotta figure out a way where we have partners that can help us focus on that. But somebody made a statement at the last BAR meeting. And as someone who grew up in a third world country, I know how much hearing church hymns on Sunday morning, even if you can't go, how much it impacts you and how much it keeps you whole. And when I heard that person said, and Sunday mornings, I can hear them singing. I can hear them praising. But when that building get built, 7.5, 7 or 8 or 9, whatever it is, equipment, it's gonna block that. It is important, but this is a part of a community. Those are the myths I'm talking about.
No, I agree. My sense from what I've read, what I've heard, is that public sentiment is kind of on your side there, that's gonna be a battle that's won. It may not be won in time, but.
May not be, but I just think that we need to, if we're talking about communities and what makes up communities, and that is a central part. Who would have thought that people were listening? I know in my country, that's something we listen to, right? Right? It's a part of the community. The church is a part of the community. Even if they don't do what they're supposed to do, it still is a part of the community. And that is important.
I hear you.
And I just think that we miss those little things. My grandma used to say, it's not the big things that people do that is important, it's the little thing. And to me, I couldn't get to the BAR meeting. I was just so, and to have someone say that's not, that is not important. It's all about the money and all that. No, it is important. It is important to that community. Again, I don't pay attention to everything. This is a thought process now about figuring out. I'm going to start looking at your map where things are going up and following up, because we're not paying attention to some of these things so we can have a dialogue. And then the last thing I would say is, I'm glad you said the whole community, because I don't think it should be just Livable Seaville that can speak about what needs to change and not the rest of the community. So I'll leave it at that.
So just to keep on track a little bit, I think the ADU program piece that you raised up, Dan, and you're echoing, clearly that needs to be a high priority as we look at the work plan for the next year. I do think it'd be good to stay on track to make sure we get through everything, to identify other high priority pieces. We know that some of that conversation is going to highly depend on the intersection with staff and time and their timing. So we can't really say exactly when that's going to happen in our sequence, at least not yet. But I think it would be good for us to go through the whole thing because I inevitably, we're gonna have to prioritize what it is we want to focus on. But I think it would be good to get the whole picture before we jump into that discussion.
Agreed. And just to be clear, it's not the ADU, it's the ordinance. not the-
Zoning, so it's zoning,
Right,
yeah,
John.
I would say that,
Administrative
yeah.
side.
Well, the zoning ordinance is different from the affordable dwelling unit or policy,
It's supposed
which is
to
the
be.
policy is
It's zoning
is related to the
our
zoning ordinance, but
units.
it's not the zoning. And so to me, the focus really needs to be on the zoning ordinance.
Can
Right,
I just say, I agree with you and I would love to. I'm sure we have very similar thoughts on what could make, I don't know, construction under the current zoning ordinance possible, especially with the guys on affordability, but I just, like. I think that one of the reasons why I think of the land bank and spending time on the land bank is important is because I think you agree with me, but I don't think zoning is gonna really push the needle forward as far as affordability. Like, I think having the way that the zoning ordinance is gonna be successful, or the way that we're gonna have addressed the housing crisis is going to, if we look at zoning in tandem with, I know of the same level of priority, but I would like community oriented development. And I feel like, I don't know, I've said this before, I thought the land bank was a way to do that. I thought maybe CRHA was a way to do that. And I don't know if this is right, but I think having that entity existing right now would be helpful in addressing the West Main Street, West Haven, LV Collective, and Fayetteville. Like, I think those would be prime sites where if there were a land bank or community oriented development entity, those would be properties that I would think they would aggressively try to purchase and so assigning an entity or accountability or responsibility to something or someone to do that work, I think is really important.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think they go hand in hand. And I mean, if we could tie up lots of lots, that would provide time to get the ordinance right. So
So I'm gonna put a pause again, because I wanna make sure we get through the whole list, and then you can go through the prioritization process.
Who has the funding to pay for the
Continue.
property? Even if you have a land bank, we don't have millions of dollars for purchases.
So
Yeah.
pause. So, I hear you, Nicole. I think, but I would like to, we will get through this list, and then once we see the things that we have not achieved,
all right, let's go.
then we can debate what we're gonna prioritize.
I agree.
So the next one on the list was landlord risk reduction discussion. That was a topic we did cover. You all spent time on that, and we do have a potential program that could be proposed to move forward. That is something that is still on the table, just as we've all known for the last few months. It's not been a time for starting new initiatives, but hopefully we'll be in a much better position to do that next year. Tax abatement for performance discussion, that was really similar. It's a lot of work has been spent on that. I think it was well worth the time. It was a great suggestion, and hopefully we'll see, I guess, where that goes, because that some of those presentations and the final recommendations are being wrapped up on that.
So that, just to be clear, so unlike landlord risk reduction, where that still largely resides with us, it hasn't been put, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, no, please, I mean, it had been put forth to staff for the purpose of bringing to council at this point. Did we finalize our recommendations? I thought we did. That's kind of what I
We're
mean.
waiting for a study to come back or something.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did have I think that we were in a pretty good spot. It was more of a decision of, is that what we want to do with our limited resources? Is that the new thing we want to take on? Because just any new program
Gotcha.
takes resources to start. So I think, like, to me, I have my list of all these things that are on the what can we do when we have staff again, which is the land bank, the landlord
Right.
risk reduction fund, the tax abatement, those three especially, and thinking about too, like, what could get us the best return on our investment of time and money. Like,
So it's accurate to say that really the work in the hack has largely been done as a question of staff capacity to be able to move them forward if we want to prioritize those.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that those ones, especially for the tax abatement and landlord risk reduction.
Okay.
Has certainly done their part. I think that after those is kind of where we fell off the plan. So geographic place-based incentives, I don't believe we ever had a meeting where that was the topic of discussion. Now, part of this is, I will say staff is still aware of this, and this is kind of, yeah, something that is on our radar as well. Not as much of a TIF program, but more a city-funded project-based vouchers that could help particular neighborhoods or particular projects. Is something that has been discussed, but again, it's not, obviously, we haven't started that.
So I'm sorry, so the idea that rather than a TIF, it's a specific, it's essentially a TIF where the expenditure, the funding goes into hyper-local project-based vouchers, or is it?
I think that the TIF is, that's something, I don't know that we've really explored. I think that, you know, that might be something worth continuing to explore, because I would say the project-based vouchers that the city has more on their radar is not, it's a different way of geographic place-based help, but it's not.
Not funded by the increased tax increment of
Right.
development in the neighborhood that's been
Right.
upzoned. Tax increment financing, so if, for example, development happens, it increases the tax base over what was there, some percentage of it stays either with that developer, or what we were proposing was that some percentage of that increment stays with that local community, so they can make decisions about how they want to direct that
And then
funding.
if you have some kind of a community-based development entity, right?
That's right.
You have money going into neighborhoods, potentially.
Yeah, that'd be great. Fee waiver programs. I don't know if we've talked about this.
This did not get a meeting for discussion.
I mean, is this essentially, I think I've been pushing that for quite a while, which essentially is just to get fee waivers carte blanche for affordable housing projects, just to relieve one additional pressure point on the cost side.
Also, I can say from the staffing side, there are huge improvements we can make in that process too, because right now there is a possibility to get reduced fees for tap fee
Yep.
reduction. But I am just starting to explore that process for the first time, and it is not a quick or easy load for anyone involved. So yeah, I think there is potential there.
From a user's perspective, it's a great program, we like it, so.
Connecting no, I don't think getting rid of it, I think,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like to Sunshine's point, if there's anything that could be done to make it a less cumbersome process. Easier, okay, you meet these qualifications, then you can do this, and I don't know. I guess you probably, if it was just a fee waiver, that's also different than right now having a promissory note, and creating promissory notes is part of the larger process that takes time and expertise.
Yep.
And that is connecting the water to the city water, right? First,
And so-
And sure.
and sewer. And it's quite a, it's has to be, yeah,
What is it, 15,000 or something now?
Something like that.
But they discount it down to 1,800 or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. It's a huge, it's
Yeah.
one of the best things the city does.
Yep.
It's really great.
That's great.
But even more than just tap fees, it's also like,
Right,
you know,
there's other
when you're doing
fees.
a large project now, the building permit fees are a couple $100,000, you know, $200 to $300,000, which or like it's basically taking money from the city that we get on an allocation and putting it back in the city, which is just silly.
Well, I know you noted too that you've gotten feedback from Virginia Housing that the fees coming out of this area.
It's not just fees.
Okay.
It's
That's
development,
just right.
development costs in
Development
general.
costs, okay.
For what that's worth, there was we have quarterly meetings with the rental advisory council for Virginia Housing. And Charlottesville was called out as arguably the most expensive jurisdiction in the Commonwealth to develop. Not on a
From the developer's
basis. From a developer,
Perspective, is
yes,
what you're saying. Yeah.
yes. Well, from what they see on the LIHTC side. And they were calling it out as a problem. Simple.
And that really, I think, kind of wraps it up, because the rest of the items on here were reviewing what we did or didn't do.
So what I would suggest as a step, and this is like a straw poll type step before we get into any sort of meaningful debate, just to kind of see where the lay of the land is. I'm gonna propose the idea that we can really only tackle 3 of these things next year. That may be able to do more, but let's just like on a conservative side, and you look back at the work we did last year, it was 3 or 4 things I think that we really sunk our teeth into. So I would propose that let's just say 3 for the moment. If you had to pick your top 3, what would they be? And this is not a vote. This is just like a straw poll assessment of where you currently think we should, and then we can discuss and see what emerges.
Well, what Dan said, ordinance language.
Well, can I make a suggestion? Each of you write down on your your top 3, and then we'll just share around the table and just see what emerges. Do you disagree?
No, I was just moaning,
It's very for
growing pains.
All right. Let's just give it a couple of minutes and just pick your 3. And they don't have to be in order. This is just a.
Paul and I are gonna, I don't.
Oh.
This is the conflict of interest view. No.
Let's go.
All right. So let's just, maybe the way to do this is just like top of the thing, who voted for what as we go down the list, and you'll just track.
Sure.
Okay. So the first one that's on the list here is land bank ordinance. Yeah, just order, if land bank ordinance is on your list, put your hand up.
Can we change it to just community oriented development?
Say more.
I don't care if it's a land bank or not. Could just,
So land bank or some other similar funding mechanism for acquiring land.
Land acquisition.
Land acquisition holding. So,
okay.
without,
All right,
without
so
having to.
we can be like a little broader then. So land acquisition and holding.
Sure.
So if so, raise your hand.
Someone just tell me the number, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
7, Mike,
Seven.
we're looking at like.
I was waiting. Well, I feel, I don't know if my vote is relevant.
I'm sorry. In this character.
This is just a straw poll. This is not about perception.
7.3.
At that point, then I think, Kathleen as the unofficial stand-in for
You wanna
John should
add?
also be voting.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome to.
Alright.
Develop and deploy orientation and recruitment strategy.
So if she's included, are you agreeing with the
Land
land
acquisition and holding,
acquisition and
or no?
holding? Or you are no?
How about this? You look at the list and then we'll come back to you afterwards and you can add it. So you have a moment.
Oh, she doesn't have a party.
And the zoning, the
Yeah.
ADU and the
Sorry about that.
zoning.
That would happen.
So before we get there, the
Orientation.
orientation and improvement strategy for people with lived experience. How many put that as a priority? 1. Okay, 1. This is no judgment. This is just a straw poll here. Pilot discussion to formulate the pilot discussion. Who rose that up? 0. ADU/zoning ordinance.
Well, that's me, but I think recruitment is important too.
I think it's a comprehensive issue for the whole city. And I think that's the way. it should
Okay, then
be
take
addressed.
down
Not
my
to
one.
necessarily be a
I think that was clear of that.
Take down
Okay.
my other one, yeah.
priority,
Fair
because
point.
it's a bigger issue.
Yeah, that's why
I
I.
have a feeling that's why no one put this at the
Yeah.
top of their list either, because it's like, what is our sphere of influence here?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but sorry, hands up again for the zoning / ADU.
So can I suggest that it be ordinance, not ADU? I
Yeah.
think the ordinance is
Okay,
burning.
so zoning ordinance, we'll just put that up there then.
Oh, I like that.
But I would say zoning ordinance and other related policies.
Right.
Because without looking at standards and design, without looking at fire, these, et cetera.
Comprehensive review. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, if you don't mind putting on there like standards and design, and other related policies.
And then the ADU,
Oh, that,
it's already on its way. Is that fair to say, actually?
I mean, I think that should
I put a
be,
check mark beside that. I thought we were.
Because it's already moving in some way.
moving, and certainly when, like, part of the scope of work for the consultants who will be working on the
Yeah.
fees will involve,
Okay.
TAC is included in their engagement strategy.
Landlord risk reduction.
Hmm.
1. Tax abatements.
And again, if I can just comment, I think we're gonna get the study on that. And once we get the study, we're gonna get the study really soon, and so.
For tax abatement.
Yeah, for tax abatement, so I don't see the issue. Then I think we comment on the study and either support it or not support
alright,
it.
can I add one to the list?
At the end.
And that's why I don't see, I see it being
Yeah, that's.
I don't see it to be a priority. I see,
Okay.
it gonna get the study soon and we'll say,
We're well on our way.
yeah,
Okay.
well, we're
All right,
not
fair
there.
enough.
It's not feasible. If
Okay.
it's not feasible, then.
No, and I think it's fair to say that without the HAP's work on that in the last year, that wouldn't necessarily be on the radar. And you couldn't be saying, check, yeah, we've made good progress on that, so.
Okay.
Okay. Geographic and place-based incentives. 5, 6.
37.
I almost wrote 7, just.
I saw Mike blink.
Fees,
But I can hear you, what you.
fee waiver programs.
Well, you've raised your hand more than 3
I
times.
did not.
We have the first order, we gotta.
That's one.
It's the only way to carry the party by himself.
Sure.
I was gonna add, like, budget advocacy. Like, if you listen to the budget work session that council had recently, it's like all about how we have no money, we can't do anything, and like very constrained. And I think that's trickling into like why staff feels constrained about, what they can do, and so, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the assumptions that the budget office was making, and I think like saying to them, affordable housing needs to be a priority and this needs to be,
He paying for it.
I mean, the budget is where policy gets implemented, so
Yeah,
focusing
sure.
on budget advocacy, I think.
But is that
You already raised your hand 3 times.
No,
Saving one.
that's why I did it, because I think it should be budget advocacy.
Budget advocacy.
Yep.
2.
2.
So I don't have another hand to raise, but.
Mark,
Can I-
Oh, I didn't got that.
No,
All right.
can I say something?
Yeah.
To append to that, so I was really moved by what Madeline said a couple of times in this conversation, is that we just don't know what to prioritize given the limited resources. I think this is partial of that conversation. One of the things that I think we have to bring back, whether it's our priority or not, is we proposed like 7 years ago now, a singular tool, the intervention analysis tool that helps make these decisions and helps this prioritization not happen in a vacuum. And that's based on the city's own stated need from 2016 that we need 4,000 units by 2040. Now we're 10 years in. And we don't have a comprehensive strategy to do this. So every funding decision, whether it's 125 to buy down the cost of a LIHTC unit, or investing money for affordable housing, or putting money into a landlord risk reduction fund, there's no framework for making this decision because we don't know what that investment does relative to our overall goal, which is to close supply and demand. And so I don't know whether that's can be woven into this idea of budget advocacy, but we don't know where we're headed and we don't have that framework. And I would like to bring that back up again, whether it's.
I do think I was encouraged by 3TB Ventures, their model seemed to be able to be used beyond tax abatement. Like you can input certain subsidies and certain interventions and get outputs from that. And so I don't know, I'm sure that that presentation and the scope of that model can be broadened to include all of what you mean, but that
I'm not sure what you're even referring to.
Okay, yeah, so. Yeah, so.
The old timers in the room.
Give a little history. In 2016, the city commissioned a study to figure out what was the scope of the affordable housing shortage.
Yes, that part I've got that, I've seen that.
And the primary conclusion was by 2040, we need to have, I think the original language was build 4,000 additional affordable housing units, which is a big ask in a city that only has 19,000 total residential units to start with. But we as a HAC said, look, it's not, if you help somebody get into an existing house, it's not building a house, but that's an intervention that takes care of the biggest problem, which is poverty alleviation and lack of housing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, let's look at all the interventions that are possible from building homes, but let's separate that qualitatively as well. So there's building and replacing CRHA units, there's new LIHTC units, there's affordable home ownership. There's
right. Building new units is not one category.
Right, that's separated into multiple categories. And then those of us who are practitioners said, well, what's the subsidy needed per unit or per intervention from the city to make one of these interventions possible? And the number that we wanted to hold to was that 4,000 at the end. It doesn't matter whether the intervention is X or Y, it's getting us closer to that goal. And that provides a framework so that we can make a decision about, well, maybe it's not quantity, but maybe what we want to do is go deeper, recognizing that amount of, and we put a dollar figure. That's how we came up with that $10 million a year contribution, because we said it's going to
take at least that.
It's going to take that. But we haven't, that I-18 never moved forward. We had like 4 city managers during the course of the conversation about
and a couple of housing program managers as well.
Right. And some were receptive to it, and some weren't. But we don't know if that was the perfect tool, but like I would never build a development without a pro forma.
Right.
Because you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to track your success, you don't know how to pivot in the middle if the conditions on the ground change, which they always do. And so we said, let's create that model. And so when city council is making a decision about how they're going to spend money, they can look and say, well, we can invest 10 million. We can invest 10 million this year, or it takes some of the pressure off CRHA and Kindlewood, because there are certain years where they need a big chunk of money to come in to keep that project moving. So it means that year that some other things are not going to be as funded, but we all know that's in service of this bigger goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so until we have that kind of framework, then I think the tool, the 2RW tool, is probably something that would be useful to help them build this out. But that fundamental framework helps guide decision making.
And it was at the time when the consultants were hired to do the affordable housing plan that we presented that tool to them, so they were cognizant of it. But essentially, and they said at the time, I can't remember precisely, but they said, we'll provide something along those lines, something along those, it wasn't just a PDF document of a plan. It was supposed to be more, my interpretation, it was supposed to be more than that. It was supposed to be a tool additionally, but I don't think we really got that in the end.
No.
And it sort of but once we had a sort of commitment for 10 million a year that was reinforced by that affordable housing plan and their own analysis that was separate from ours, but we landed at the same figure, generally speaking, the city councils kind of moved forward with that, which understandably, but back to Dan's point, the affordable housing plan sets broad goals. It doesn't provide a way of tracking that over time and estimate, and costs have also escalated significantly since we first developed that. Anyway,
But I think the bottom line is, I think we've set you, staff, council, and senior leadership up for failures because we haven't given, you guys don't have that framework for decision making. So every decision is happening in a vacuum. And building housing happens over a long period of time. And so I don't know how that fits into our work plan, but I think we have to reintroduce something like that, or we're always going to be at the same spot where we're kind of spinning our wheels and we don't know how to make a decision. So for example, if the decision community-wide is that, look, we're not going to meet our number of unit goals, but we want to meet depth of affordability, we'll know. And if it's $120,000 to make all of the units that are coming online go from 60 to 20, 60 to 30, and that's what we decide as a community, well then let's do it and understand what the trade-offs are. So
Is this a staff person or is this I'm trying to conceptualize who does this.
well, we did it. We did it initially with
Yeah.
Rory Stolzenberg, Phil, like it was a bunch of us pulling together initially. Then we brought in, at the time, it was Mike, I think, like as a city manager at that, or maybe he was the assistant city manager at that point. Anyway. Regardless.
Yeah.
I think it is a back and forth, but it will absolutely require city staff participation.
But I think who does it, sorry, my question should be, who does it every year or every,
well, so it depends on what's
Ongoing.
It's one of the
Yeah.
problems, and again, this is kind of bringing back old history, but I think that there's a much better relationship between staff, senior leadership, council, and the HAC than there was before. There was a power struggle before. And so I think this thing which was presented, this is my perfectly biased opinion, was presented by HAC as a tool that would be useful for the city, was seen as something that was that should have been the purview of staff and not an appointed board. And it ended up being kind of a power struggle, and it also had to do with the makeup of council at the time. There was a particular council member who didn't trust anybody on HAC, really, and so any product from HAC was kind of dismissed. But I think we're in a much different environment now. I would think that there'd be more receptivity to HAC, and we don't mind doing this. This is my life's work. I don't mind. I don't mind doing this. I don't mind doing the bulk of the work on this to present something. But I'm sorry, that's a long answer to a short question.
If I hear what you're saying, then something like that is needed, right? Because it wasn't until Audrey and I sat down with Sunshine and then sat down with Jeff Myers and then sat down, Sunshine. Jeff Myers is someone who is do the what he does?
He said BCDC.
He's been, but he helps to,
The syndicator investor side.
right.
That wasn't on the agenda.
No, it was not.
Good at breaking down.
But if it wasn't for him breaking it down just to basically showing how much it costs to do a unit and all, I don't think we quite would be where we are about deeply affordable housing and affordable housing. It's like Sunshine broke it down and showed it to us, like, if you don't have, if you just going for just tax credit, I don't know if you realize what he did that day at the FAR office by putting it on the chart and showing it to us. It was getting us to understand it so that we could convey it to our other residents.
Simplify it.
Right, simplify it so we can say, hey, it's not gonna work with just this, we have to do something else. So what it costs to do from 0 to 30 or from 30 to 40, I think will make some of our residents or even the community understand it better, right? So something like that is actually needed for the general public, but I know from Sunshine and even John Sayers is really good at this stuff to making you see and why you need a project bid voucher, and why you need to have philanthropists, and why you need to, bank, and why you can't just, like public housing is a sore spot for Audrey and I, because, we're not bringing back a lot of our public housing. Because the subsidy is so low, it doesn't make the performer, it doesn't work with the performer. And so that's the best way for us to we don't like it, because we know it's putting a pressure on our residents when they come back, but I think something like, if that's what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
I do think it's needed.
So can I make a
So, because
proposal?
then I think staff and city council and all will see, here's where the need is, right?
I'd like to make a proposal. So you threw out 3 as a straw man for the number of things we can work on, but I'm hearing some momentum around 4th, something around what Nicole proposed and I added on to, and Joy's talking about, that creating a budget framework for solving the problem. If we did 4, even if we can't do 4 in a year, we can expand we can expand the time horizon. We can say this is a 16-month, 18-month plan or something like that, and take on 4. But I would propose that we take on 4 rather
But
than
is it
3.
hard to aggregate on an annual basis to say this year, we increased deeply affordable housing units by this number for this amount of money?
Yeah, but that's not helping you understand what you.
No, but I'm just saying in terms of bigger picture, moving forward, this group of appreciating what we might have accomplished or supported. Does that exist? Is there?
I hear from some cynical people, oh, Charlottesville is better than a lot of affordable housing. And so there's always this debate between me and them, it's like, affordable for whom?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the advocacy way of seeing those numbers to be able to say, oh, okay, we're not building these, and this is what we should be building. Or how can we partner to build these?
That's one of the nice things about having a live tool like that, is that when you build something for somebody at 30%, or you create an intervention for someone at 30%, you fill it in. And that pro forma, your actuals starts to be a live report card of how you've done. And
Michael?
I think, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just think it's essential because things change every year, and what penciled when you put something together 5 years ago is no longer reality. And when you're coming to the table trying to explain the gaps, and you're also talking to people about how fair market rent hasn't adjusted to what their income is right now. And 30% is not always going to get there anymore. And I think having a tool like that can, really help break down also why these gaps are here and what we're trying to focus in on.
I want to say something in response to that, but Michael, you.
Go ahead.
Okay. And I think it's a really important point, Kathleen, because some of you have heard me say this before, but the analysis I did of the change in the area median income from 2017 to 2023, we saw a 60+% increase in how HUD calculates AMI. So that means that the rent for a 30% AMI household your chair.
Sorry, Willie.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
the rent for a 30% AMI household is now 63% more than it was back in 2017. And the cost of, that's if you don't have a voucher. That's just like, you're just paying a 30% AMI unit rent. And the cost of construction has gone, like all these things have varied, and we have very strong political winds where resources that have been there historically to support people are less reliable, and in the next couple of years with Medicaid and everything else will evaporate even further. All that to say that I think it's important for us to track what we have achieved, and we also have to acknowledge what has changed in that time frame and recalibrate accordingly.
Yeah, I know we have 3 other big topics to get into, but I was just gonna, so it's one kind of outcome Like the goal was the number of units at different AMI levels at that point. That was the estimate for the number to accomplish that. But there's just a tool that could kind of prove to council that $10 million a year is irrelevant now to meet that goal. It's actually now 15 or 20. Is that kind of the goal? And maybe along with that, getting in writing, because this makes me nervous on budget advocacy, that there's nowhere in writing that the in lieu fees are not on top of that annual commitment. And I do worry that at some point it'll become convenient to say, well, we got 10 million from these two projects, so let's just, the budget's tight, so let's just have that do the 10 million commitment this year.
I would posit this, Michael, that it's less of a goal than it is a byproduct. In other words, I mean, if we set out, I mean, all of us, I think all of us would, it's easy enough for us to say more money for affordable housing, right? But I think what this is it shows what the constraints are and what the impacts of some of the decisions are for council, so that if 10 million only gets you, you know, when we first started putting this tool together, it might have gotten you 100 units. There's only gets you 50. Now that 10 million is, you either have to adjust that 10 million or you have to adjust your goals. And that puts it, that just makes it really clear, and it makes I think it makes policy decision-making more transparent for council. And so if someone wants to say, well, we're spending 10 million already, then you've got the data that says, it's fine, 10 million, but 10 million is going to get you this.
Right. Versus the gap that we know is the objective gap. Right.
So the city automatically puts 10 million into the. No,
Automatically.
It's not automatic, no.
or I don't mean automatic. It's agreed upon that 10 million, but the in lieu of money does not go into that pot too, in addition to the 10 million?
It's kind of TBD.
I mean, it would all go to the same pot. I think it's, Michael's point is more, that should be an additional amount, not part of that 10,000.
Because that's the whole idea of the zoning, is to create affordability, and I would be disappointed to hear that otherwise.
I think that sentiment is resonant around the table.
Yeah, because I think from the staffing perspective, it's like, okay, we have all of these different programs we're contemplating starting. That money could go towards starting a new project and not having to reduce these other things that we're already doing. But if you're saying it's 10 million only, then yeah, you're really having to make a lot harder.
Yeah, at this point, the amount of money that's put out through the NOFO for CAF is de minimis. It's like, what, 700,000?
823,000.
800,000, so
It might be 825,000.
of the 10 million, there's only 800,000 looking for new projects right now. And that's because it's funding important stuff. It's funding CRHA project. I'm not advocating for the invert, for something different. It's funding Kindlewood, it's funding CRHA, it's funding vouchers, it's funding a number of things. But when someone has a project that comes up, all of us are competing for a very small percentage of that. So a new project, there's just not a lot of money to fund anything new.
Yeah, and even like there's $10 million for next year, but more than half of that has already been allotted to projects that are multi-year projects. So it's not like, okay, what are we gonna do with this 10 million? It's okay, well, we have $2 million left that hasn't already been committed to projects. What are we gonna do with that? And we've got a request in for supporting, like $15 million more projects, but because we get also submissions through the RFI process where people do put in less formal requests, but it's more just providing information about larger projects and what would a commitment from the city look like. Here's what we would need to be able to build this many affordable units. That's like a less defined process.
So, and one thing that I brought up the HIA, HIT, whatever we call it. IAT, the housing intervention analysis tool. So we took off the housing, IAT. And what I'm looking at is the list of, just going back to what Dan started with around the 4,000 unit of gap. It was easy to interpret that as needing 4,000 new units, when really what Dan was trying to make this point that it was an affordability gap, some of which was absolutely need for new units, so maybe even a majority, but in other cases it was property tax abatement so that folks could afford to stay where they were, as an example. So if it's all right, I'm just gonna quickly read through the list of things that we contemplated in the IAT, just so we have a sense of the comprehensiveness of it. And there may be things we want to add in the future or whatever, but. So CRHA, rent replacement rental units, that's the public housing redevelopment, Friendship Court replacement units, additional CRHA units, additional units of Friendship Court, SRO and PSH units, which is like the Vista 29 that's going up, accessory dwelling units, additional LIHTC rentals by whoever develops them, density bonus, proffers, plan unit development, special use permit, affordable home ownership, land trust, vouchers, additional tax relief, income boosting grants, down payment assistance, miscellaneous shared equity home ownership, emergency repairs, rehabs, rental housing counseling, home ownership counseling, and one-stop housing hub interventions. So we did identify a whole host of interventions to address the affordability challenges depending on where people are on the spectrum of need. So it's 1:37.
Yeah, there is a meeting in here at 2, so we'll have to.
Okay, so the
four.
so the budget, so do we wanna,
I don't know what you wanna call it,
what
but
I would recommend, well, I don't know if I recommend this. So we have, without the IAT being included at the moment, we have 3 clear priorities, at least in this straw poll.
Mhm.
Ordinance review, land acquisition and holding, place-based incentives, and then budget advocacy, which evolved into the IAT, and that discussion was the, sort of a close fourth, which I think you're kind of suggesting the idea that we contemplate 4 as our sort of work plan or work goal for the next year or so, year plus, depending on what it takes, and what kind of staff capacity there is for engaging on it, because all of these things require staff capacity and engagement and partnership in some way. Is that the outcome we were looking for? Is those 4? We want to rank those 4 a little bit in terms of priority between them.
Looks like it's done.
So it would be one for me. It's just me.
Well, some people had votes, like we had a discussion. I kind of wondered, like, if we re-voted right now, if you picked your top 2 out of those 4, what would rise to the top after our discussion right now? Because I do think we have to put some order to them in order for us to be able to tackle them in a
you can say,
meaningful
where
way.
do you wanna start? Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna suggest another straw poll exercise. You get 2 of those 4, 2 votes. This is not saying you're gonna only do those 2, it's just like, what do you want to prioritize first?
Out of those 4,
Out of those 4.
okay, so
And
ordinance.
and if you could put IAT by budget
Yeah.
advocacy.
Okay, so ordinance review
Ordinance
and
review.
other related policies and processes.
Is that one of our 2 is what you're asking?
This is, is this one of your 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Could you go over the 4 for me again? I'm not sure if I heard all 4.
Yeah, the 4, or, I'm sorry.
Ordinance review, yeah.
Yeah, it's the ordinance
Okay.
review, land acquisition and holding, place-based incentives, and then budget advocacy and IAT. So 7 for ordinance review,
Mhm, 8,
8, thank you,
Advocacy.
thank you. Land acquisition and holding,
Oh, wow.
interesting. Place-based incentives.
That was me.
Them all.
I know, but like, it's just about where we prioritize our energy initially.
Okay, 2, sorry.
I know, I hate my own voting structure. And then budget advocacy and IAT, which is clearly the, okay.
However many that is, I can leave.
So those are clearly the 2 priorities as far as how we move forward.
the 2 top
The
priorities.
2 top priorities, thank you, sorry.
So then can we go back to the next?
And so the other 2 are the place-based incentives and
And
land acquisition and holding.
So pick one of the 2.
No, I think it's okay. In some ways, my suggestion is that we focus on those 2. We know the other 2 are gonna come a little bit down the road, or it could be like with the ordinance review, Matt comes back and says, we're not gonna be ready to engage for 3 months. So our body then could then focus on the other priorities. So we may have to be a little flexible. in that
Or he
way.
may not want us involved, right?
Well, That,
I don't share.
that's not an option.
Okay, okay,
Okay, we'll find a way for HAC to be involved.
Yes.
I like it.
And I think, yeah, that's part of the nice part. I appreciate now being a part of NDS because I think some of that is a little easier now that I'm also involved in those discussions, which wasn't necessarily happening before.
Okay.
One and two, and then 3 and 4 would be land acquisition and.
Place-based
incentives. Yeah, I think we should just put it on our work plan.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, what is it, what's the first step for budget?
I mean, I think if you're looking at this tool that was previously created, it would be wanting maybe to revisit that and seeing what needs to be changed or
I asked
updated,
for-
but that's also for you
It's like-
all to decide.
I mean, I do wonder a little bit on that front, like, we are putting that forth as something we want to focus on. I do think beyond Madeline, we would need buy-in from city manager's office in one way or another, somewhere in that chain, for them to be willing to engage in that with us. Like, I don't think we can do it and then it,
So first step is to talk to.
I think there's an element of advocacy for that being something that we want to resurface.
And I know who could advocate for it. I mean, so I appreciate that. Ultimately, it needs to be, the city manager needs to be front and center here. But if-
3 votes on.
But at some point, council is the city manager's boss, and so if this is important to council, it's much better that this comes from council than it comes from HAC.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately,
Maybe I'm
whatever council
overcomplicating
decides
it
on the
and
priorities,
creating-
that's our.
Conflicts where conflicts don't exist, maybe that'd be an easy conversation. But
I don't know.
Let's see what Sam says.
Or you want to respond to that?
Is there anything wrong with inviting Sam to this meeting and just saying, here are the things that we wanna work on and here's why?
Yeah, I mean, and I would say,
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. I wanna see his reaction in person. Yeah, I wanna hear what he has to say.
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, and it's kind of, you said it's a byproduct of this process, but we have had conversations around that $10 million figure not being reflecting reality anymore. I mean, I would agree
We're
that,
meaning something different.
yeah, it means something different than when we adopted it,
Yeah.
the outcome of that 10 million. I mean, if it comes from council, I think that's always the best route. I just think, you've got to convince
Mhm,
2 other people,
mhm.
and I think you have a very strong belief in a narrative of non-subsidized market rate units collapsing rent to the point where I don't know what
the
3 votes are in
intervention
terms
won't be
of
necessary.
wading into something like this. With absent conversations before to convince people, look at the data, look at. I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, I guess I'll just put it to you more bluntly. How do you see advancing the conversation? Is it better if you're part of the group that talks to Sam? Do you want to invite Sam to be part of this? Do you want this to go to, I just want it to get done. I don't want to step on anyone's toes and I guess I'm kind of trying to put myself in council's, when I talk about the IAT, it's trying to give council a tool so they can make decisions.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like we have hamstrung y'all's ability to make decisions.
And in that case with the rent, the tool can communicate what is happening to rent.
Right. So Michael, what's your
And the geographic place-based.
What's your
rent.
sense of politically and keeping feelings in mind and political reality? What's the best way to kind of at least bring this up as and hopefully move it forward?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I would think if the HAC has the ability to update the IAT tool that existed, and that is something that can come from the HAC directly to city council, I think that's fine, and I think that's the most likely avenue to start council saying, hey, this would be cool to formally incorporate into how we make a decision about a budget allocation, if I'm understanding what you want the outcome to look like. But I mean, I wouldn't see an issue with if the hack is able to update that tool and present it to council.
Well, I think part of my concern is that, to be perfectly candid, hours and hours and hours went into this. And I think, frankly, think it would probably require hours and hours and hours to update it. So I would be hesitant to put in that time if it was going to either fall flat or not be supported
Well,
at the
another-
staff level.
There may be another route is, there's that upcoming work session about affordable housing, communicating to council. We're interested in just getting direction from council. Do you want us to explore this, and seeing if at that work session a majority says yes or no. That may be a route to know.
It's funny because I mean, council isn't easy, so I wanna talk to Dan and see what he has to say.
Yeah.
See his reaction.
I think that's where we need to start.
I do agree with Joy.
Yeah, I'm agnostic about the way forward. I was just positing this as an alternative. I'd go with whatever you guys think is the best strategy. I just wanted to, I think,
And like the budget office.
yeah, I think it's just killing me. I've been working on affordable housing in Charlottesville for 25 years, and I would never, ever do any project ever without a budgetary framework for solving a problem or getting a development done. And I just feel like we've been flying blind for a long time. I just want this to move forward in some form.
Yeah.
You would know.
Is there an agenda set or a structure set for that upcoming work session?
Talk to Sam.
Yeah, I mean, Sam had thrown out a few topics, but I don't think, there's certainly nothing published, and I think it's still not like set in stone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the 3 topics were,
Basically bringing down AMI for LIHTC projects, land acquisition, and I can't remember.
yeah, I can't either. I ended up having to, land bank, SISRAP, and Kindlewood affordability. I think also relating to what you put
Yeah,
up there about
same topic. Similar
subsidization
topic.
and yeah.
When is this scheduled to occur?
I think it's December 1st. I'll tell you as soon as I know for sure.
I'm sorry I came in late. I apologize for that. Is that a joint hack council, or is that a?
We didn't
council?
discuss before. don't worry.
It's a work
Yeah, I
session
don't think
that
it's
Sam is taking the lead on the work session with the city council.
About
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Yes.
It's kind of city council budget session.
Right. Going into budget session, here's things to keep in mind regarding affordable housing and the many different ways we can choose to spend that money.
Well, I mean, Mike, could you bring forward to that work session a report from Hack that these are the priorities that Hack has come up with?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah, I
that
would say
that's
ordinance
route.
to get involved in interview and revivification of the IAT, and maybe you can suss out in a public environment
But he don't like
With the-
surprises, so.
what the, I mean, nobody on council knows what the IAT is other than you and potentially Lloyd. Maybe an opportunity, maybe Brian, but a
We could
chance.
all email.
And
Sam
Phil.
beforehand or something.
Yeah.
Phil doesn't know that this,
Well, he's
Oh,
not on
Phil does.
council.
yeah, he was a part of.
Right, but he was saying who's on council then.
Oh, on council.
Yeah, just a chance for us to say like boldly, this is our work plan. Is there any feedback?
No, I mean, I think that's definitely one route. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think one of your, like, 2 of the top priorities that you all identified kind of line up with 2 of the topics that are already being planned to discuss that night about not exactly the TIF part of the place-based incentives, but more location-based vouchers or subsidies, and then the land bank and how we might move forward with the land acquisition and holding strategy. So, and the ordinance review is obviously something we've all agreed is going to happen.
They skipped up.
Well, and I think just for the other thing with the ordinance review, not the part you were talking about, but the part you were talking about, Joy, about the zoning districts and specifically student housing around 10th Page, Fightville, Rose Hill. At this point, that's planned to be discussed at a work session of city council in January. So that would be kind of the relevant
Okay.
timeline for everyone to think about that portion of ordinance review, not what you were talking about though.
Yeah, so they're getting to, that's good to hear. So they're getting tier 3 in January, basically.
I think that specific
Just
topic.
that topic.
Once I got.
They're gonna develop the one topic.
One piece of tier 3,
Yeah.
like a hot button issue. right there.
Yes.
Right.
That's
And
Yeah, and that's because we've been showing up.
Right,
Yeah.
got it, yeah.
I mean, it was one byproduct of council indicating we were interested in not having tier 3 items take a year before we're getting just a study
Yeah.
before we move
Yeah.
into even
Right.
implementing the study.
Right.
So we just flagged that, and then we don't need to have a discussion about it tonight, and or not tonight, but right now.
It's always funny.
I know there's no windows here. But the hack may not need to weigh in on this, but just for everyone's awareness, leading up to that January conversation, we did get communication of, I guess, policy preference from Livable Seville about both for student housing, eliminating the 0.5 mile radius, and then also completely eliminating all inclusionary zoning, either payment in lieu or on-site affordability requirements for
Just
student
say
housing.
That has not been fully fleshed out yet, and there was a lot of discussion about whether that.
Yeah, I just know we got an email
I know you did.
from Livable Seville as a formal statement saying that that's what they wanted city council to do. So
You're part of Little Steve?
Well,
that-
I would
There's no
say
definition of who is and who
a
isn't.
pretty big asterisk on it.
sure, but that
That's
request of
something that-
eliminating
yeah.
inclusionary zoning affordability payments is obviously an extremely important topic that maybe people should just be aware, maybe that's something that will come out in January.
Okay, well, I think we are gonna have to get this one wrapped up. I wanna tell you that the agenda says our next meeting is scheduled for August 20th, 2025, which is incorrect.
So that.
It is scheduled for December 17th.
And does anyone have any conflicts, or are we good for that schedule? I'm still. These 2 months are challenging, but
I think if anyone has any conflict at this point,
too bad.
yeah, we're not gonna be able to reschedule it, but
Fair enough.
we'll see you in January.
All right, fair enough.
I'll be up prepping my reindeers for whatever.
Yeah, maybe in December.
Yeah, I decided we won't be able to, if today all of a sudden we wanted to reschedule it, that would be very challenging.
Oh,
Public comment?
Yep, public comment?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm glad you've been talking about budget because I'm talking about something that is directly relevant to your budget, and that is the half mile radius. The city planning team.
Did you mind
Quick
introducing
introduction.
yourself?
Sorry, yeah, my name is Paul Reeder. Despite my accent, and as some of you here know, I've lived in Charlottesville since 1994. I currently live at 211 Fifth Street Southwest in Charlottesville, and I back up onto the proposed student housing development that would be going up 15 feet off my back wall to a height of 7 stories. One of the issues that has come up in connection with that development is that the city, specifically Jim Freese, specifically gave guidance to the developer that they were within half a mile radius of the edge of UVA grounds. As if any of you are here, have been here a long time, you'll know that that's patently untrue. However, the city seek to justify that by a very expansive definition of what the edge of the half mile is. It includes both the historic hospital and the pocket park where the general used to stand confronting the Indians, or the Indians used to stand confronting the general on horseback opposite the Graduate Hotel, which is, as you all know, I hope, which is this side of the railroad tracks, which means that it violates several items of the definition of central grounds and the border of university area that are in your affordable housing unit guidelines. Specifically, obviously, it's not contiguous because it's a railroad track. And secondly, the ordinance or your guidelines specifically exclude outlying university-owned parcels that are not considered part of the campus for the purposes of this ordinance. So there is an immediate effect on the proposed 7.5 Street student housing development to reduce the payments that they would have to make in lieu by, I think, over half. It's difficult to calculate. As you know, that calculation is a tricky calculation to make. But the rates on table A as opposed to table B are less than half. So it's a reasonable expectation that it would reduce the contribution by a half or more. And it would also set dangerous bad precedent for you, as it would include the old hospital buildings, as well as this little pocket park for any future development. So the half-mile radius gets expanded beyond central grounds and north grounds that are referenced in your housing ordinance. I believe it is against the spirit of the ordinance as it was written, and it is against the letter of the ordinance as it is written. The zoning administrator, whose man here called Reed Broadhead, is in the process of making a final determination. When that final determination is made, if it sticks with the current definition that the city is using, which will deprive this board of money. If they stick with that definition, I will be appealing that to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I believe, given the inconsistencies in the city argument, that I will win. I would prefer not to have to do that. So if anybody wants to speak up or examine the paper that I've written, I would encourage, if you're the administrator of this group.
Yeah, I can share any.
Encourage you to distribute it. I need your email to send you an electronic version that I could send to you for distribution to the committee. But this is something that you should all be concerned about. And as far as I'm concerned, if the bastards are going to put up this building, then they should jolly well pay for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
Appreciate that.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Do you know the order of magnitude of, Paul, do you know the order of magnitude of the difference between the half payment and the whole payment?
I believe the developers calculated on their initial plans that we have to pay the city about 2.6, but it's somewhere between $2 and $3 million. So if that amount is doubled, that's another $2.5–3 million.
Thank you.
Now, you may say, oh, great, we get more money. But, this is a bad development in the wrong place in the first place. So it shouldn't actually happen. But like I said, if it is going to happen, I'll feel better if they pay $5 or $6 million as they're supposed to, as opposed to $2.5 million or so. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna call the meeting to close. It's 2:00. I know I have to get to 2 different meetings. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Good work.
Yeah.
And I